Liverpool signed off for the international break with a comfortable 3-0 win over Brentford at Anfield. That leaves them second in the league, just a point behind Manchester City, who just so happened to be their next opponents. So what did we learn in that 3-0 victory, and what does that tell us about Liverpool's chances at the Etihad? Hello and welcome back to the Tactics Board right here on the American Scouser. If you don't already, make sure that you follow us on your preferred social media platforms and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well for more videos just like this. Now today I have got in front of me Liverpool's starting 11 from that game against Brentford, and there were a couple of selection dilemmas that Jurgen Klopp had going into this game. So we knew that in the number 6 position, this deep lying midfield position, Alexis McAllister would be missing. He was suspended for an accumulation of yellow cards. But Ryan Gravenberch and Curtis Jones were also missing from selection. So Liverpool had a limited number of midfielders to choose from. And Andy Robertson continues to be out after his recent surgery. So that left the left-back position up for grabs as well. And then on the day of the game, we also found out that Joe Gomez was ruled out through illness. So Liverpool basically had to play Wataru Endo as this number 6 and had to play Kostas Tsimikas at left-back. And both players had started in the disappointing 3-2 defeat against Toulouse in Europe prior to this game. So there are a few issues with those players in this system that Jurgen Klopp had to try and solve. So we know normally in Liverpool's system, we get Alexander-Arnold moves into midfield from right back, and then the defence shuffles across, and we get this 3-box-3 formation. So named because Liverpool have a back 3, they have this box in midfield, and then the front 3. Now, in theory, this means that Liverpool are more defensively solid because they have 2 players in this pivot area instead of 1, which they used to do when Fabinho was at the club. And so if, for example, the ball is lost in the middle of the park, this player could snap into a challenge, counter-press, try and win the ball back without worrying about this space behind him because he's got another player in that pivot position to help keep him covered. That's the theory. But in reality, because Trent Alexander-Arnold is in this position for his incredible passing ability and not for his defensive ability, and if you can hear that siren, all I can do is apologize. I live in New York City. Alexander-Arnold, because he wants to use his really good passing range, he's always going to drop out of this position if that means he can find space to receive the ball and play these passes into the forward line. So if he has to drop out or if he has to drop back, he even sometimes has been known to get into this kind of quarterback position, anywhere where he can find space to pick out these passes that change games for Liverpool. The downside of that is, let's say Alexander-Arnold has pulled out here to play a pass and the attack breaks down. If Endo steps out, he now has all of this space to defend by himself. And Endo isn't one of these physically dominant, really tall, quick, aggressive defenders who's going to step forward and dominate all of this space. There's very few of them in world football. He tends to be more of this security blanket who's going to sit just in front of the back line and help keep them protected, but he's going to drop off. That's what he normally did at Stuttgart, and so he's still adapting to playing this role in Liverpool's more high-pressing system. So that can leave Liverpool's midfield a little bit exposed, and we also talked in a previous Tactics Board video, so if you haven't seen it, make sure you check that out, about Kostas Tsimikas. Now, he is Liverpool's left-back, but he did start his career as a winger before dropping into this fullback position. He still wants to get forward. He has one of the best assist to minutes ratios in Liverpool's current squad. He wants to get forward, whipping crosses, affect the attack. The defensive side of his game is not what he's most renowned for. So asking him to play as basically a centre-back on the left of a back 3 in this system, it takes away some of his benefits and it highlights some of the weaknesses in his game. And Liverpool had seen all of these problems in action in that 3-2 defeat to Toulouse going into this game. So Jurgen Klopp had to try and figure this out. And what he clearly thought was, if I can't change the personnel, I'm going to have to change the tactical system in order to make this work. So Liverpool lined up in this 4-3-3 shape, and then rather than creating the box midfield that we're used to, what they actually did was push the fullbacks, keep them wide, but push them higher up the pitch. The centre-backs would split, in this case Van Dijk and Matip, and Endo actually then dropped into the back line. So rather than having to get involved in this midfield or be one of the pivot players who come under a lot of pressure, Endo actually dropped into this back line to receive the ball from Alisson during build-up. Alisson then, rather than being part of this build-up unit, was more like a safety blanket behind them. And this meant that then you would have the midfielders, the attacking midfielders, in this case, who's Cody Gakpo and Dominic Szoboszlai, they would drop in and they would drag Brentford's defenders with them. Brentford, who wanted to sit deep and hit Liverpool on the counter, and instead they had to then come all the way up the pitch to follow Gakpo and Szoboszlai, who were in as the two pivot players. Endo then could be part of this back three, get a little bit more time, some more security on the ball. Alisson's behind him if he needs to. And then we have the fullbacks nice and wide, and now the little bit of space to hit once they receive the ball. Now, usually when Liverpool are building up, these two pivot players are their most creative players. It's normally McAllister and Alexander-Arnold. They have a really good range of passing between them, and they're both relatively good coming under pressure. So Liverpool will try and find these players in space. The opponents will try and mark them, so Liverpool will tend to go more wide with the ball, attract opposition pressure, and then play inside to these pivot players who now have a bit of space to get the ball forward. So you could think of it as Liverpool tend to attack from out to in order to build up. In this structure, because Liverpool creatives were the fullbacks, Tsimikas and Alexander-Arnold, they would try and attract pressure in the centre, so drag these players out, mark the pivot players, and then try and go directly out wide, so kind of attacking from in to out. That meant they could get Alexander-Arnold or Tsimikas on the ball. They could either drive forward with it or play these passes directly forward into Liverpool's forward players and attack at pace. So by creating this 3-2 structure with Endo joining the centre-backs and then the two number 8s coming backwards in midfield, Liverpool stayed nice and defensively compact, nice and secure. They were still able to counter-press, and they always had a ball out wide to the full-backs so that they could get away from pressure. But the big talking point in this moment is how this affected Liverpool's attack. And I've got a few examples from the game to show this. So here is Liverpool's first goal of the game. What we see here is a lot of Brentford's players are sort of clustered over towards the left-hand side of the pitch. This is because Tsimikas has previously had the ball on the left-hand side of the pitch. Now, if you look at the positioning of Cody Gakpo here, the number 18, that kind of central position is where you'd probably expect to find Alexander-Arnold if he was playing as a central midfielder in this game. But because he's playing as more of a traditional or more of a modern fullback, so that he's still playing fullback, he's essentially one of the wider players in this shape. The ball's been over towards the left. It's now been moved quickly to the right. Alexander-Arnold's got all of this space out right to receive the ball. He's able to then punch it quickly through the lines into Núñez. He tees up Salah. Liverpool score. It's 1-0 to Liverpool. Again, the use of both fullbacks here has been crucial in dragging the ball one way, getting it another way, and then using this creative player to punch a ball forward and get Liverpool in behind Brentford's back line. If we then skip to the next goal, this time we can see it's Kostas Tsimikas at the back post here. He's actually so high up the pitch, giving the width, that the ball nearly goes out of play, and the goal is subject to a VAR check, but he's just about able to keep it in, crosses the ball in, and Salah heads it into the net, makes it 2-0. And another thing you'll notice is Trent Alexander-Arnold towards the back of the picture. Now, if Liverpool effectively have condensed all of the pitch into just the left half of the pitch, just the left-hand side, Alexander-Arnold's actually one of the wider players towards the right side of this kind of half pitch that we're working with. So again, you've got one fullback nice and wide on the left, another fullback on the edge or the width of Liverpool's attack on the right-hand side, and Liverpool are able to create this situation, score a goal to make it 2-0. And lastly, we see again for 3-0, Kostas Tsimikas on the ball, high and wide on the left-hand side. He's got a few different players to aim at with one of his crosses. On this occasion, he actually cuts it back to Diogo Jota, who takes a touch, smashes it into the back of the net for 3-0. So that's a 3-0 win for Liverpool, 3 goals scored, and all 3 of them, you can see that both fullbacks clearly involved. 2 assists for Tsimikas. We've got the pre-assist for Trent Alexander-Arnold here. So how Liverpool used their fullbacks in this case was crucial to how they were able to score goals. So what does that tell us about the game against Manchester City? Well, probably that Liverpool should just do this again. If you've been watching American Scouser, you'll see that our fearless leader, Timuchin, has been going on and on about how Trent Alexander-Arnold is one of the best right backs in the world. He should just be playing as a right back. Jurgen Klopp apparently listens to the show, tried it out against Brentford, and Liverpool scored 3 goals, all of them coming from our fullbacks or our fullbacks being involved in them. So you'd think against Manchester City, Liverpool will just play Trent Alexander-Arnold as a right back. Yes and no. Okay, yes, Alexander-Arnold is one of the best fullbacks in the world. He showed it in these examples against Brentford, and he's shown it against Manchester City in the past. However, after I watched Brentford versus Liverpool, I then watched Chelsea versus Manchester City, and that crazy 4-4 draw at Stamford Bridge showed that City can be made human. It was one of the most chaotic games that Pep Guardiola's City has ever been involved in. But it also had some details that I think were worth mentioning when looking ahead to Liverpool against Manchester City. So here I've got an example from that game, early in the game. Here we go. Got an example from early in the game. This is at 0-0, and Manchester City are trying to press Chelsea's build-up. So we've got the goalkeeper, Robert Sanchez, playing out from the back. Now, unlike Brentford, who were trying to stay conservative, they pressed with the front two, where they were trying to be nice and compact at the back. Other than that, playing in a 5-3-2. Manchester City playing in this 4-2-3-1. So out of possession, they're going to try and press in a 4-4-2. So you're seeing Haaland here leading the press. He's got Alvarez alongside him, Phil Foden, and Jeremy Doku. That's their initial front four in this 4-4-2 press. And so Reece James, who you'll notice is Chelsea's right back, he's actually come inside into this half space so he can get in between the Manchester City press and receive the ball. That then attracts pressure from Bernardo Silva and Rodri, who are the two midfielders in this kind of 4-4-2/4-2-4. He's now got a little bit of space to receive the ball. Sanchez gives him the ball. He's got an easy pass to Thiago Silva, which he plays. So Bernardo Silva, who was pressing Reece James, now comes over and tries to press Thiago Silva. You've got Alvarez pressing him. You've got Rodri trying to get involved. So they've managed to draw City's press out. But Thiago Silva just plays simple 1-2, gives it back to Reece James, who now has all of this space to try and run into. That means he's just out of shot, but Josko Gvardiol comes in to try and win the ball back. James is able to get there ahead of him. And if we move the tape on, we see that City are now actually defending a 5v4 situation. And so you've got Chelsea 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against City's back four. This is actually the kind of situation Chelsea should do a lot better in. Liverpool be licking their lips at a situation like this. And it all starts because Reece James, who is the right back, inverts into midfield, creates a bit of space for himself, gets beyond the first line of pressure, draws in one of City's centre-backs, or the left-back in this case, Josko Gvardiol, and they create this dangerous situation. So using Alexander-Arnold in the kind of inverted midfield position, or inverted right-back position, where he moves in from right-back to central midfield, could create situations like this if Liverpool are able to beat City's press. On the other hand, Chelsea might have scored 4 goals in that game, but they conceded 4 goals in this game as well. And the perils of playing a left back on the left side of a back three, situationally or essentially, that was demonstrated in City's 3rd goal. So what I've got here now is, here's Marc Cucurella forming part of Chelsea's situational back three in this moment. What's happened is, early in the second half, Manchester City have a throw in, they throw it backwards and immediately hoof a long ball forward to Haaland, who drops it off to Alvarez here. And so now City are attacking this back three, which is what Liverpool would have if Alexander-Arnold played as an inverted right back in this game. And he's able to pick out Phil Foden, who's managed to stay nice and wide. Cucurella has been drawn into playing narrowly, so you've got Foden now has all this space to attack. And he also knows Cucurella is a fullback, not really a centre-back. 1v1 defending, not his specialty. So he's confident he can be aggressive, he can attack Cucurella here. So if we move the tape on, we see he's delayed the ball. Cucurella can't go in. He's got this 2v1 situation. So Foden waits for this overlap to come. There's nothing Cucurella can do. Haaland already knows what's happening and gets slipped in. Alvarez cuts it back and Haaland is able to score. And so this is what happens when you have a back three playing against City, who are just as devastating in transition as Liverpool are. They've got players like Foden, like Alvarez, like Haaland, like Doku, who could really hurt you in these situations. And if you have a player like Cucurella, or in Liverpool's case, Kostas Tsimikas, playing out of position as a centre-back when it's not their specialty, they can get doubled up on, exposed, and it's an easy goal for Manchester City. So all this to say, how Liverpool choose to use their fullbacks, how they choose to use Trent Alexander-Arnold and Kostas Tsimikas against Manchester City could be key to unlocking a result. Now, using them as fullbacks worked really well against Brentford. It could do so against Manchester City. but they could also get punished in the way that Chelsea were punished as well. So how are Liverpool going to use their fullbacks against City? We'll have to wait and watch the game to find out. If you like this episode of the Tactics Board, make sure that you like it. Make sure you're following us on your preferred social media platforms. Make sure you're following us on YouTube. Join the community, and that way you'll never walk alone. Thank you.